Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and it is official, Seattle Surge have made a roster change here in the CDL for 2021, and a very interesting change I believe at that, because they've left it quite a long time to make this move. Now, have they left it too long to get the man that would have been perfect for this team, and will this new lineup significantly improve over the old one? Intrigued to take your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new, as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Just hit 58,000 subscribers, I believe, setting a little goal of 60,000 subscribers by my birthday, which is in 3 weeks time today. So that'd be kind of nice if we could go for that one. That'd be kind of cool. But well, let's just dive into things then. First of all, Decimate and Huke. This is the discussion a couple of days ago from Crone at CDL Intel, talking about the fact that Decimate is more than likely on a team. Probably that is going to be Seattle, as it turns out. Huke was another question mark as well. We've been talking about this whole Florida Mutineers discussion. Crone says, right, it heard earlier, but this week they were released in discussions. No idea if they have agreed on a buyout as yet, but Hastro did say in an interview we looked at, he'd trade Huke to the team of his design. So we'll have to see how that one progresses. But well, there's also been plenty of intel coming out regarding this Decimate to Seattle Surge move. This is what Silly tweets out a couple of days ago, implying something's going on with Seattle Surge, and Decimate's mother actually on the timeline was liking a couple of these tweets, implying that something is indeed going on with Decimate to Seattle. Indeed, that is what happens. They do this kind of cool announcement, something's going on over at Seattle Surge's YouTube channel. That just went live. Just a relatively short video saying how, Decimate will be joining the lineup, as we will look at in a second. Kind of funny how the image, the outline they've used right here, that you can even see Save Octane in the background. But the image that they've used for the outline is certainly Casey Panda, who was on their team last season on the substitute bench, came in for a time. As he says right here, just got onto it, and trust me, it ain't me this time round. Just know that. New asset acquired, they do indeed say, and that is confirmed to be Decimate joining the starting team. Decimate, a player, of course, who's been around the scene for quite a while now, really since the World War II days. We'll have a look at his tenure really in Call of Duty here in just a couple of minutes' time, replacing Loony then on the starting team. So pretty much as expected, Loony, who, at least in terms of slaying numbers, we'll look at stats here in just a second, wasn't really putting up, I guess, what the Seattle Surge needed of him, but of course he did play a very important role on the team in terms of the chemistry and being the leadership figure on their squad. So it is really interesting to see how this team develops with him gone, because yes, they might get more slaying from Decimate, but do they have kind of the well-rounded team that they still need? Maybe that's not necessarily the case, and I'm also kind of concerned about necessarily the slaying power that this lineup still does have. Maybe, well, whether it can actually compete with the best of the best, given, some of the other players that could have potentially been on the market that they haven't been able to acquire. So Decimate comes in. Congratulations to Decimate, certainly, as Joey Nubsy says, their coach. Very excited to bring Decimate onto the team and finally show what we can really do as a roster. Time to get to work. And firstly, let's talk about the player who bows out of the team, that being Loony. And it does remain to be seen whether he will be in a starting lineup of a team ever again in Call of Duty. I felt like, honestly, when Seattle signed this lineup at the start of the season, it felt to me almost like they were just paying Loony into retirement. That may indeed be what we see here. And as I say, I'm somewhat surprised this team was formed at the start of the season. I never really thought this was going to be a long-term option. I mean, a lot of the teams right now, they're building around young up-and-coming talent. Seattle's one of the teams not to do that, and as a result, they find themselves here in a very tough spot in the CDL. We'll look at in a second. Can this team actually bounce back from the deficit they find themselves in? And is it really too much of a surprise? Looking back on it, you could argue maybe not. So Decimate, of course, comes in. To touch on Loony real quick, of course, he's been a great player throughout his career, but in terms of competing with some of the up-and-coming SMG players that we have in the league right now, it's just been tough for him to do so. And as Joey says, it would be a genuine disservice not to mention what Loony has done for the team. Despite what anyone would want to believe, Dan brought this team leadership and never let anyone give up on themselves. We fully intend on utilising him as the most beneficial fifth man in the league. So whatever that means, who really knows? Whether he's going to be playing more of a coaching role alongside Joey Nubsy, whether that means like subbing in for certain game modes, I kind of doubt we're going to see that, but who really knows? Nubsy did it last season a little bit with Enable coming out for Panda. I believe he did that in Search and Destroy a couple of times. We'll have to see how that develops over time. But yeah, trying to utilise Loony to the best of his ability, which I think is a good idea, because I think he'd fit great into that kind of coach analyst type role on a team, but of course no longer in the starting lineup, and this really is expected when we look at some of the statistics so far this season. This is the entire season so far. Hardpoint he has a 0.88, in the Search and Destroy has a 0.82, and in Control a 0.76, so not exactly ideal. They're 4 in 12 or something in series count so far this season, certainly a few close ones, but as of late, despite looking so much better in Stage 2 compared to Stage 1 when Prestinni actually went massive in Stage 2, compared to his Stage 1 performance where he was having some internet issues, now as of late in Stage 3, really not looking so good, and they were the final team in the CDL outside, of course, OpTic and FaZe, who haven't changed yet, not to make a change, right? Every other team in the league, apart from OpTic and FaZe, have made a change. Seattle finally do join the train, but is it too late to necessarily get the man that they wanted? Because as Loony says, good luck to the squad. I'm confident they can turn the season around with Decimate. As for me, I do not know what's next. Last couple of weeks has been super stressful, so thinking about what happens next with Loony, I'd love to see him still around the COD scene in some degree or another. But clearly in terms of the slaying this team needed in terms of the SMG lines, which are so important this year, he just wasn't quite cutting it this season so far. So as Octane says, welcome JT, that being Decimate, of course, time to get to work. And a reply revitalize here, Octane now officially has help. And as he says, got my opportunity with a team with incredible potential. Certainly they do. I mean, we talked about this team at the start of the season, of course. Octane and Gunless are no joke. Prestinni has been great on this team. Another really fantastic SMG slayer would have rounded this team out very nicely. But Loony brought more to the team necessarily than just that, right? Because the question always is really with this squad, the fact that Gunless and Loony, pretty much the only time that Gunless has had a year where his team hasn't fully imploded in terms of chemistry was when he had Loony on his team back in Rise Nation in World War II. Once again, with Loony off the roster, maybe he can still kind of provide that from the bench to some degree or another. So I don't expect this team just to explode, but at the same time, that is kind of in theory what Loony was bringing to this team. And okay, we've got Decimate into lineup. If you guys aren't familiar with this player too much, these are his performances, or at least his placings from back in World War II when he was on Era for a time early on. You guys might remember that team. Then he joined the Envy squad. Never had too much success. I mean, in Black Ops 4, they had a decent tournament actually at CDL London 2019 on this Envy team. And then, of course, last season in Modern Warfare, he went into that Los Angeles Guerrillas team for pretty much the entire season. And they had, well, obviously not the greatest of successes. Now, don't get me wrong, Decimate is a very talented player, but given the fact that they've made this change so late into the season, there are some questions certainly to be raised, I think valid for valid reasons. The fact that, okay, why did you not consider making this change earlier? Now, of course, when we look at their season so far, you can see that when they went into Stage 2, they had a couple of nice results here up against Florida, up against Paris. I mean, they lost a close series against Dallas, close series against Minnesota. I mean, they actually got reverse swept, I'm pretty sure, in this one. That would have been really big for them to actually win. They could have made it into the winners bracket for the major. Things could have changed up very significantly. So I can see the fact that they had a kind of poor Stage 2, they decided not to make a move. And of course, they didn't have a substitute to easily bring in. But you're looking at teams like Los Angeles, Thieves, for example, who are looking so good now, just beating OpTic just yesterday. They made so many changes because they are committed to winning, right? They're a team that like winning at all costs, not necessarily at all costs, but, you know, they want to actually be lifting championships. It feels to me that Seattle don't necessarily want to do that, right? Because you're now here like 3 stages in, you're finally making this change, and a lot of the players that you might have wanted to get in terms of an SMG slaying on your front lines are players that you can't really acquire anymore. They obviously haven't been able to get Huke for understandable reasons. Of course, Byte situations I'm sure would be super complicated over there, and it's not really sure that Huke necessarily wants to go to this team or that Dallas Empire even want to get rid of him. But you're thinking about guys like Standy, for example, coming into Minnesota Rokkr. You're looking at Venom, who came into Los Angeles Thieves, and if Seattle had pulled the trigger earlier in the season, they could have got one of those up-and-coming SMG talents, which you're kind of not sure what their ceiling is. Decimate is great, don't get me wrong, and I think he can be a valid, addition to this team in terms of the SMG slaying line that he brings, but he's not going to be the next Simp, right? We kind of know what you're going to get out of Decimate. You're probably not going to get anything absolutely spectacular. Maybe he will certainly prove me wrong, and I think it's going to be, it's going to be important to see him going to be able to do that, right? If this team actually does want to have great success, because in the league right now, pretty much all the top teams have 2 amazing SMG players. Prestinni has been fantastic on this squad in the main Slayer role, but to me, I don't necessarily think he's best suited to that main Slayer position. In his career, when he's had the most success, he's been generally the kind of support SMG player. We saw it in his World Championship winning team back in, of course, Black Ops 4 and the United squad last season as well. He kind of did it on the Huntsman as well when he joined that team to Scump at times, and this season he was pretty much required to be the main SMG player, the main SMG Slayer, and he's done that to great effect. However, in theory, you can imagine a world in which Huke joins this team. Huke is now the main SMG Slayer, Prestinni supporting him, Gunless and Octane on the ARs at times, being Gunless flexing when he needs to. That is a really deadly team. So Decimate, of course, hopefully I think will fit into that role nicely for Surge, but I would probably say if they'd have made this change earlier in the season, they could have maybe got someone who could have fit this role a little bit better, but I'm sure Decimate will do a great job. He's been killing it in Challengers, but pretty much one of the last players in Challengers, though. You've got Saints, you've got Sib down there as well, that actually are players that teams actually want to pick up right now. So it's kind of tough in that situation, of course, not having too many options left on the market, and we will see whether this team's chemistry does falter. Maybe, of course, the honeymoon period that Octane talks about, will that come in over the coming days? We'll have to see. I think they play a tough matchup against FaZe we'll look at here in just a second next week. But as you can see, this is when Rise Nation won the championship. Loony here, Gunless here, and what a team this was for a time. Pretty much, as I say, the only time a team hasn't completely collapsed with Gunless on. Will that happen now with Loony gone? I'm not necessarily sure it will, but it certainly was a discussion of why Loony was on this team in the first place. This is the week that Seattle Surge have here at the Dallas home series. They play Atlanta FaZe on Friday, May the 7th. That is not an easy warm-up by any means. They're going to have a hell of a honeymoon period, I think, for Seattle to win this series. And then their final series, they play up against the London Royal Ravens. Certainly should be winnable for Surge, but right now I think Ravens are probably favourites going into this series, unless that Surge improve pretty drastically, pretty quickly. I think they will improve to some degree. Can I still see this team winning a championship, though? I'm not necessarily convinced, but I think finally we might see a little bit more of that top 6, top 4 potential at times if they can all clear click and get everything going on the right cylinders. Because we've seen a lot of changes so far this season. I've got effects for some teams, some changes not necessarily. I think this team improves, but so many other teams are so great right now, and they're also improving very drastically, that it's tough to look at this team and say, okay, they're immediately going to be a top 6, top 4 team in the game. It is tough to be that good, especially when you look at the point standings right now. But as I say, they're pretty much going to have to be that good, right? Because they sit in 11th here. Of course, they're only 30 points behind 8th. That's where you need to be to get to the World Championship. That's what all these teams down here are thinking about right now. Can we get to champs? And Seattle Surge certainly are going to have to improve somewhat significantly to get the job done there. Minnesota looking somewhat unassailable right now in 7th, and all the teams above that significantly better. So there's pretty much just one spot up for grabs for these 5 teams. And Seattle Surge have made a change, maybe just in time to turn their series around. But I think maybe they should have considered it a little bit earlier than they did. A few things just to finish off the video here. Then this from the Modern Warfare 2 Ghost, talking about the Modern Warfare 3 campaign remastered, supposedly coming out this year, which is kind of interesting. We talked about this whole thing, what's happening with the COD this year. Is it going to be Modern Warfare 2 remastered? Something like that. Apparently that's not going to be the case. Modern Warfare 3 campaign coming this year, so looks like we are still in for Call of Duty World War 2 Vanguard later this year. This from the TacticalRab Academy as well. I didn't actually play this on screen for you guys a couple of days ago, but I thought it was kind of fitting given the fact that, well, New York were playing Seattle Surge in a, well, when Clayster brought up the new 3-0 thing that he's got up on here. New Clayster me for 3-0 matches. The 1-2-3, 3-0 into, well, just after this one, Seattle Surge decides to call it a day and make a change. And speaking of up-and-comers they may have considered in the Challenger side, Douglas St. Martin is still there on the sidelines, well, not yet getting a start in the professional league. But intrigued to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. Like you enjoyed this content, other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you much, as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.
What about yourself? What about yourself?
What's left on you, Carson?
I'm dead. I'm dead. Let's go.
Onyx is close. One shot. Yellow lamp, one shot.
Yeah, like yellow man, black man, and one.
I gotta back up. I'm backing up.
Alright, let's just rotate here.
I'm gonna go jungle.
They spawned raid, by the way. They're gonna be back there probably.
I got one raid. One shot raid.
Okay,
You got one. You guys want to double it?
Try your jungle, okay, Jared?
Figuring it out.
One Zig.
Jump under me.
Zig dead.
I'm spawn out.
I killed Hunt.
Yeah, I'm on a 4, guys.
I have
He's
water.
backstab.
I can help you. Sabby, I'm coming kitchen. Chalice, Sabby.
Playing back step.
Chalice, Sabby.
I'm hard flash, I can't.
One's middle.
Back to your right, Seb.
Chalice, Sad.
I am.
Have your front, guys.
Dead,
One's middle.
I'm on a 5, guys.
Good up.
I'm on a 6. I'm one shot.
Play left.
Kitchen on me. No, last one kitchen. Nightmare. Right side kitchen, not weak.
I'm pushing out front, bro. They're spawning.
Nice, Sabby. I spawned back. I'm blocking.
Hold it back.
I'm blocking it.
Two kitchen.